Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be discussing Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974. The learning outcomes of this module are to learn about the provisions pertaining to prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, to analyze the role of Central Pollution Control Board in prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, to analyze the powers, functions and role of State Prevention and Control Board in prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, and to find out the acts which have been declared as offences and the penalties prescribed for those acts. Dear students, as we all know, water is very important for the survival of mankind, not only for the survival of mankind, but for the existence of the entire universe. And potable, clean drinking water is essential for human life. That is why the Supreme Court of India in Narmada Bachao Andolan declared right to clean water as part of right to life and personal liberty. Because without water, we cannot survive. In various another pronouncements also, the Supreme Court of India has declared water as part of right to life and personal liberty. Though a right to clean water has not been declared as a fundamental right under the constitutional provisions, but due to judicial pronouncements, this right has become part and parcel of a right to life and personal liberty. If we look at water pollution, there were no clear provisions in the Constitution of India when the Constitution was enacted. No provision was made for the prevention, control and abatement of water pollution. However, the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, that was a landmark and that proved to be a catalyst in development of law pertaining to pollution. And India being a signatory to that Stockholm Declaration, India amended the constitutional provisions in certain provisions in the Constitution and enacted laws pertaining to prevention, control and abatement of pollution in general, water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution in particular. 24. Then we look at the implementation mechanism, that is Central Pollution Control Board, the composition of the board, the powers and functions of the board, State Pollution Control Boards, their powers, their functions and role they play in prevention and control of water pollution. Then we will be looking at the joint boards, their composition, when joint boards can be constituted, what shall be their powers and functions, and then we will have a look at the provisions pertaining to prevention and control of water pollution, that is, what are the measures which have been laid down in the Water Act for prevention and control of water pollution. And finally, we shall be dealing with various offences and penalties and procedure for levy of penalties under the Act, and then finally we will be dealing with the conclusions and summary of this presentation. Before the commencement of the Constitution, there was no particular enactment which dealt with water prevention and control of pollution, though there were various legislations, various laws which were enacted to deal with water pollution or the matters connected therewith. For example, before independence, we had Sure Nuisance Bombay and Colaba Act of 1853. We had Oriental Gas Company Act of 1857. We had Sarais Act of 1867. We had North Indian Canal and Drainage Act 1873. Indian Fisheries Act 1897. Indian Ports Act 1908, Indian Steam Vessels Act 1917, Indian Forest Act 1927. So all these enactments had some provision or the other which dealt with water as a subject. But the clear provisions or a single law dealing entirely with control and abatement of water pollution or prevention of water pollution was not there. There were provisions in the Indian Penal Code also, under section 277, which declared if anybody fouls the stream or a well or corrupts the stream or a well, which leads to deterioration of water, or which anybody who puts obnoxious matter, poisonous matter in the water, stream or a well, that was declared as an offence. But how to prevent pollution, what shall be the procedure, which shall be the authority, there was no clear specification prior to the independence. When the Constitution was enacted, the Constitution makers, they divided the powers of legislation among the Union government and the state government under Article 245 and 246, read with Schedule 7 of the Constitution. In Schedule 7, List 1, the items on which the Union could legislate, they were put in, whereas in Schedule 2, In list 2 of schedule 7, those items on which states could make laws, they were enlisted. In list 3, concurrent matters were enlisted, in which both the union as well as state governments could have made laws. Under this bifurcation, the subject relating to water, that was given to the states, that means it was put on the state list. Therefore, it became a state subject. However, in the provisions contained in list 2 and in the constitution itself, there were no clear provisions pertaining to water pollution. Though we had provisions in part 4 of the constitution, that is directive principles of state policy. In particular, when we look at article 47, which talk about public health, maintenance of public health, but then that topic did not clearly deal with water pollution, though indirectly it is dealing with, because if the water sources are contaminated or they are polluted, that would be detrimental to public health. But if we look at the constitution prior to 42nd amendment, there was no clear provision pertaining to the environment. As I said, water was declared as a state subject. We have to look at some other provisions of the constitution in brief. For example, article 252, which empowered the union government that on the request of the state governments, union or the central legislature can make a law for one or more state governments. Similarly, article 253 empowered the union parliament that it can make laws for the country in order to implement the decisions taken at international conferences and also to enforce the international conventions or treaties which are entered into by the Union of India. In consonance with the power given to the Union of India became party to Stockholm Declaration in June 1972. June 1972 Stockholm Declaration was a landmark in the development of environmental law and jurisprudence across the globe. Accordingly, to fulfill the commitments under the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, the Government of India enacted Water Act of 1974, that is Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974. If we look at the Act, if we analyze the Act, we find the objectives of the Water Act are to make provisions for prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, to establish legal regime which is aimed at controlling water pollution and also at maintaining or restoring the wholesomeness of water, to establish central pollution control boards, state pollution control boards, and where needed, joint pollution control boards to regulate and curb water pollution, and to provide for penalties if anybody contravenes the provisions of the Act, of the Water Act. The Act, if we analyze the Act, Water Act has defined what is meant by pollution. In section 2, the Act says pollution means such contamination of water or such alteration of physical, chemical or biological properties of water, or such discharge of any sewage or trade effluent or any other liquid, gaseous or other solid substance into water, whether directly or indirectly, which is likely to create a nuisance or which would render this water as unfit for the uses to which water can be legally put to, that is domestic uses, commercial uses, industrial uses, agriculture uses, or any other use to which water can be put to. Similarly, anything which makes water unfit for life and health of animals or plants or aquatic organisms, that has been declared to be included in the pollution. So pollution has been defined to include contamination of water, alteration of physical, chemical and biological properties of water, discharge of sewage or trade effluents, or discharge of any other liquid, gaseous or solid substance into water. If any of these substances or any contamination of water or alteration of chemical properties or biological properties of water or physical properties of water makes water unfit or is likely to create a nuisance, or it renders it unfit for human beings, for animals, for plants or for aquatic organisms, that is included within the definition of water pollution. So having analyzed the definition of water pollution, we see that in the definition we said discharge of sewage effluents or trade effluents. Sewage effluents may be discharged from domestic sources. When we look at trade effluents have also been defined in the Water Act, which mean any effluent discharged by the commercial establishments or by the industries which have the effect of contaminating the water. For implementing the purposes of the Water Act, implementation mechanism has been created under the Act. The Act provides for the constitution of Central Pollution Control Board at the central level, State Pollution Control Board at the state level, and also for the constitution of Joint Pollution Control Boards when one or more states or union in respect of union territories and one or more states enter into an agreement for constitution of establishment of Pollution Control Board. So as we discussed that we can have the act establishes Central Pollution Control Board at the central level. If we analyze the act, we find that the Central Pollution Control Board is to be composed of a full-time chairman. The person should have practical or special knowledge or practical experience in matters pertaining to water pollution, or he should have experience in managing or administering institutions dealing with water pollution. The Central Pollution Control Board should contain not more than 5 government officials to represent the union government. Of course, these officials are also to be nominated by the union government. Similarly, the board should have representation of not more than 5 representatives of state pollution control boards. These persons are to be nominated by the union government out of various state pollution control boards constituted by the states in those states where the Water Prevention Act is in force. It is worth noting here that initially Water Act was enacted under Article 252 when 12 states passed a resolution empowering the union to enact a law pertaining to water pollution for the entire India. However, with the passage of time, almost every state has ratified this agreement, this act, and therefore the act is applicable in all these states. So therefore, the members of State Pollution Control Board, not more than 5, are to be nominated by the union government out of the State Pollution Control Boards. Of these 5 members, at least 2 members should be, 2 representatives should be from the local bodies which are functioning within those states. Similarly, the board shall also contain non-official members, not more than 3. These non-official members are nominated by the union government and they are meant to represent the interest of agriculture sector, fisheries, industry, trade, or any other interest which the union government believes is required to be represented in the Central Pollution Control Board. The board should also contain 2 persons who should represent the corporations or companies which are owned or controlled by the union government. Similarly, the board should have one full-time member secretary. Like chairman, the member secretary is also required to be a full-time person. He should have practical knowledge and experience regarding the managerial aspects of water pollution, engineering aspects of water pollution, or scientific aspects of water pollution. So far as the members of the board are concerned, their tenure is 3 years. They can retire, they can resign before the period of 3 years by putting in their resignation. As we have seen that the Central Pollution Control Board is composed of various official members who are to represent the corporations owned by the union government, official members to represent the departments of the union. Now, so far as these official members are concerned, or maybe the official members who are representing the state pollution control boards, so far as these are concerned, they shall cease to be the members of Central Pollution Control Board as soon as they cease to be the members of the department of the government, or as soon as they cease to be the officers of the government. Similarly, the members representing state pollution control boards, they shall cease to be the members of Central Pollution Control Board as soon as they cease to be the members of the state pollution control boards. The members representing the companies or the corporations owned or controlled by the union government, they shall also cease to be the members of Central Pollution Control Board as soon as they cease to be the officers of that company or that corporation owned or controlled by the central government. So far as the service conditions are concerned, their members are required to attend the meetings of the Central Pollution Control Board as may be held from time to time. If any member is absent from 3 consecutive meetings, then he shall be deemed to have vacated the office. However, if there is a reasonable cause for absence from meetings, then he shall not be deemed to have vacated the office. Therefore, before removing a member on the ground that he has failed to attend 3 consecutive meetings, we would have to give him a reasonable opportunity of presenting his case. If he was absent without a reasonable cause, then he is deemed to have vacated the office. But if there was a reasonable cause for his absence, then he shall not be deemed to have vacated any office. So therefore, before removing a member of the board, he has has to be given a reasonable opportunity of being heard. As I said, members may resign before the completion of their tenure of 3 years. Any member who was a member of the Central Pollution Control Board may apply for being made member again. That means a member is eligible for renomination. So a member who was holding the post of a member for 3 years, he can be renominated again for a fresh tenure of 3 years. When we look at the functions of Central Pollution Control Board, the Central Pollution Control Board is to perform multifarious functions. If we look at the functions of Central Board and State Board, as we said, at the national level we had Central Pollution Control Boards, and at the state level we had State Pollution Control Board. The primary functions of Central Pollution Control Board are to make plans. The execution of those plans is basically the responsibility of or the job of the State Pollution Control Boards. The Central Pollution Control Board is to make those plans and basically to coordinate various state pollution control boards operating in various states of the country. If we look at section 10 and other sections of the Act and find out the functions of Central Pollution Control Board, we find their primary function is to promote cleanliness of streams and wells across the country. As we all know, streams and wells are the source of potable water. Therefore, their job is to ensure and to make rules and to inspect that the streams and wells flowing throughout the country, across the country, they are kept clean at all levels, at all hours as well. Their main job is to advise the union government regarding matters concerning prevention of water pollution, to lay down the standards of discharge of effluents into water and water bodies like streams and wells, to coordinate the activities of state boards and to resolve if there is any dispute between various state boards or if any conflict arises between the central board or the state board. This Central Pollution Control Board is required to coordinate those boards and also to solve any dispute arising between various state boards. The Central Pollution Control Board is to provide technical assistance to the states. If we see the scheme of the Act, the Central Pollution Control Board, as we said, is basically meant to chalk out the plans. The execution part remains with the states. However, the Central Pollution Control Board is mandated to provide technical assistance and guidance to the state pollution control boards and also to sponsor investigations pertaining to research relating to water pollution, prevention of water pollution, the pollutants which are likely to contaminate the water. They are required to organize training sessions for the persons who are associated with or who are likely to be associated with programs for prevention, control and eradication of water pollution. The Central Pollution Control Board is required to organize programs like mass media campaigns, awareness programs, so that the water streams, wells, they can be kept clean and kept potable at all hours. The board has also to see that Central Board is also to see that the state boards are working in compliance with the provisions of Act and they are discharging their duties properly. If at any time it is found by the Central Pollution Control Board that the boards are not working, the state pollution control boards are not working properly and there is non-compliance with the provisions of the Act, then the provisions are made in the Water Act that the Central Pollution Control Board can supersede the state board if there is a grave emergency. In public interest, it can take over the functions of state boards and can discharge the functions of state boards. Other functions of Central Pollution Control Board are to collect, compile and publish material, technical material and statistical data pertaining to water pollution measures and for preventing the water pollution. As we said, they are to make the plans, they are to chalk out the plans. Therefore, all statistical data pertaining to water streams, the flow of streams, the pollutants and the number of wells, that is to be compiled, collected and published by the Central Pollution Control Board so that the State Pollution Control Board and Central Pollution Control Board can coordinate with each other for prevention, control and abatement of water pollution. They are to prepare material regarding treatment and disposal of sewage, how the sewage effluents or the trade effluents, they can be treated, to provide technical know-how to the states and to provide material about how the disposal facilities can be installed, how they can be treated, to lay down the standards for discharge of effluents, trade effluents or sewage effluents into water bodies or water streams. These effluents, these standards or norms are to be prepared by the Central Pollution Control Board in consultation with the state boards. As we said that the responsibility of implementing the plans is with the state pollution control boards. Therefore, the state governments and state boards have to be consulted while the norms for prevention of or discharge of effluents into water bodies are to be laid down. The CPCB is required to plan and organize national programs for prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, and they are also required to ensure that the national plan prepared by them is implemented, is executed in letter and spirit. They have to establish or recognize central water laboratories. If we see the scheme of the Act, there are required to be water laboratories for analysis of the water samples. These laboratories are required to be established by the Central Pollution Control Board. Similarly, state pollution control boards are also required to establish state water laboratories. This apart, there is a requirement for establishment of one are board laboratories established by the State Pollution Control Board or Central Pollution Control Board, and then the other layer of laboratories are established by the governments respectively, by the central government or by the state government. Similarly, they can perform any other functions as may be assigned to them from time to time. Apart from the Central Pollution Control Board, there is a body at the implementation mechanism at the state level, that is the State Pollution Control Board. If we look at the composition of the Central Board and the State Board, they are on the similar lines. Since Central Pollution Control Board is established by the central government, the persons, the officers, the chairman and the member secretaries are to be nominated by the central government, whereas in case of State Pollution Control Board, they are to be nominated by the state government. In contrast to CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board, SPCB, that is State Pollution Control Board, may have a full-time chairman or a part-time chairman. In case of Central Pollution Control Board, the chairman was required to be a full-time chairman. But in case of State Pollution Control Board, it may be full-time chairman or a part-time chairman. To be eligible to be appointed as a chairman, the person must have special knowledge or practical experience or experience in managing or administering institutions dealing with water pollution. Just like Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Board is also required to have not more than 5 government officials representing the state government. These are to be nominated, of course, by the state government. Not more than 5 persons are required to be there in the State Pollution Control Board who are to represent the local authorities within the state. Just like CPCB, SPCB is also required to have non-official members. Not more than 3 non-official members are required to be there who are to represent the agricultural sector, fisheries, industrial sector, trade or any other interest which the state government deems fit to be represented in the State Pollution Control Board. 2 persons are required to be nominated by the state government who shall be the officers of these corporations or companies owned or controlled by the state government. This apart, to perform the functions of the State Pollution Control Board, 1 full-time member secretary is required to be appointed by the state government. The member secretary should have knowledge and experience regarding the scientific, technical, engineering and managerial aspects of water pollution. The functions of State Pollution Control Board are to advise the state governments regarding matters concerning prevention, control and abatement of water pollution, to chalk out detailed and comprehensive plans for prevention and control of pollution in streams and wells within the state and to secure the execution of those plans, to collect the information pertaining to water pollution, prevention and control mechanism, and to disseminate the same at all levels within the state, to encourage, conduct and participate in research regarding water pollution, prevention and control, to coordinate and collaborate with Central Pollution Control Board regarding training of personnel and to organize mass education programs relating to water pollution, prevention and control of water pollution, to inspect sewage and trade effluents being discharged in the state and to inspect the works, plants established for the purpose of treatment, purification and disposal of the same, to review and reformulate the plans for these purposes. Other functions of State Pollution Control Board include to inspect industrial establishments and grant necessary sanctions subject to terms and conditions for the achievement of the objects of the Water Act. If we look at the provisions of the Water Act, we find that the State Pollution Control Board are to implement the provisions of the Water Act, and for the purpose they are to inspect the industrial establishments whether they are complying with the norms laid down by the Central Pollution Control Board for discharge of effluents and sewage and trade effluents into streams and other water bodies. The functions of State Pollution Control Board include to collect, compile and publish technical and statistical data relating to water pollution, and to find out the measures for preventing the water pollution and for the abatement of water pollution. They are required to prepare material regarding treatment and disposal of sewage and trade effluents and to disseminate information regarding the same at all levels. They are required to lay down standards and norms for the quality of receiving water within the state and to modify or annul those standards which are made by the State Pollution Control Board. On the basis of the quality of water, the boards are required to classify the streams or wells and their suitability for different purposes. Certain portions or some quality of water may not be suitable for drinking of humans or for animals. Therefore, the State Pollution Control Boards are required to classify the waters which are suitable for agricultural use, for industrial use, or which are suitable for use by humans for drinking and other purposes. The State Pollution Control Board is also required to find out the economical and reliable methods for treatment of sewage and trade effluents, keeping in view various factors like soil conditions, climate of the area, the flow characteristics of the streams or wells. They are required to advise the state governments regarding the location of industries which are likely to pollute streams or wells. Under the Act, every establishment before starting any industry is required to obtain the sanction of the State Pollution Control Board, and therefore for the purpose the SPCB can make rules regarding the location of industries. That means in which areas, in which parts of the state those industries which are likely to cause water pollution or which are likely to pollute the streams or wells are to be located. The SPCB is also required to set standards for treatment of sewage and trade effluents to be discharged into a particular stream, keeping in view fair weather dilution available in that stream and also the tolerance limits of the pollution permissible in the waters of the stream. This apart, the State Pollution Control Board can pass all necessary orders which may be needed for the prevention, control or abatement of water pollution, or which may be needed for preventing or controlling the discharge of waste into streams or wells. The state boards are empowered to amend or revoke or vary any part of orders which they have issued from time to time. As we have seen that the functions of State Pollution Control Board are multifarious, and their functions include directing any person who is constructing any industrial establishment to get information from them. They can direct any person to construct, modify, extend or adapt system or systems for disposal of sewage and trade effluents as may be necessary for the prevention, control and abatement of water pollution. They are required to plan and organize national programs for the prevention, control and abatement of water pollution and cause the same to be executed. Rather, they are required to prepare the programs at the state level so that these programs can be executed throughout the state. The SPCB is also required to establish the board laboratories, or instead of establishing, State Pollution Control Board can recognize the existing laboratories and recognize them as the board laboratories for the purpose of analysis of samples of water, analysis of sewage or trade effluents. The SPCB is required to coordinate and devise methods for utilization of sewage and trade effluents in agriculture and in other sectors. They are also required to devise methods for disposal of sewage and trade effluents on land, keeping in view various factors and prevalent conditions. This apart, the board is required to lay down effluent standards to be complied with by the persons who are causing discharge of sewage or sewage or both, and also to modify these standards from time to time, keeping in view the soil conditions and fair weather conditions and other conditions prevalent at that point of time. The SPCB is required to organize the awareness campaigns, and they are required to discharge such other functions as may be entrusted to them from time to time. Apart from the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board, there is a provision in the Water Act for establishment of joint boards. So the question arises, when joint boards are required to be constituted? Joint boards are to be constituted when two or more adjoining states, they enter into an agreement for the establishment of joint board. That means the states, instead of constituting or establishing their own pollution control boards, may enter into an agreement, the adjoining states can enter into an agreement and establish a joint pollution control board. Joint pollution control board can also be established when an agreement is entered into between a union government in respect of union territories and on one side and one or more adjoining states on the other side. It is pertinent to mention here that though the state pollution control boards are required to be constituted in the states, in case of union territory, no state pollution control boards are required to be constituted. Rather, the functions of state pollution control boards in case of union territories, they are to be performed by the Central Pollution Control Board. And for this purpose, Central Pollution Control Board can discharge those functions itself, or CPCB can delegate those functions to a body or to a person who is to perform the functions of State Pollution Control Board in the union territories. Therefore, in case of union territories, this central government can enter into an agreement with one or more adjoining states and constitute a joint pollution control board to perform the functions of state pollution control board in those union territories and in the states where the state pollution control board has not been constituted. The agreement for the constitution of Joint Pollution Control Board shall contain provisions for division of expenditure between the participating governments. As we said, that joint board can be constituted for one or more adjoining states. Therefore, how much of the expenditure is to be shared by the respective state governments, or in case when the board is constituted for adjoining union territory and a state adjoining state, then how much expenditure is to be distributed between the union government and the state government. This shall be provided for in the agreement itself. Similarly, the powers and functions of the participating governments have to be provided for in the agreement, as the joint boards are required to perform the functions of State Pollution Control Board. Therefore, which functions are to be performed on behalf of which of the government, that must be specified in the agreement itself. This apart, the agreement shall also contain provision for consultation on various matters between the participating governments, whether these are state government and the central government, or the state governments per se, if the joint board is constituted for one or more adjoining state governments. If we look at the composition of the Joint Pollution Control Board, the composition is on the same lines as the Central Pollution Control Board. It shall have a full-time chairman and one full-time member secretary. It shall have at least 2 government officials to represent each of the state governments. That means for each state government, 2 government officials shall be nominated to be the members of the Joint Pollution Control Board. One representative of these shall be from the local bodies who are functioning within those states. One non-official member from each state is to be nominated, who is to represent the interest of agriculture, fishery, industry, trade, or any other interest which the respective government believes that it should be represented in the joint board. 2 persons representing companies or corporations owned or controlled by the state government, they are to be nominated to the joint board. These persons are to be nominated not by the state government but by the central government. The full-time chairman is also to be nominated by the central government. Now let us have a look at the provisions in the Water Act which deal with the prevention and control of water pollution. The foremost provision is that the Water Act prohibits any industry, any process, any operation, any treatment facility, any disposal system from discharging any sewage or trade effluent into a stream or well unless the consent of the State Pollution Control Board is required. Unless that consent is obtained. That means before any establishment can start functioning and can discharge any effluent or any disposal system can start functioning and discharge any effluent into any water body, any stream or well in the state, it is required to obtain the prior consent of the State Pollution Control Board. And for that, the institution is required to file an application for consent of the State Pollution Control Board. The State Pollution Control Board, after going through the application and satisfying itself that the requirements of the Water Act are complied with, and that the instruments necessary for the disposal and for prevention of water pollution, they are there, it can grant the consent. It can also refuse to grant the consent if the Pollution Board is of the opinion that the provisions of Pollution Control Board the provisions of Water Act are not complied with. But before refusing the consent, the reasonable opportunity has to be given to the person who has applied for the consent of the State Pollution Control Board. So far as the existing establishments are concerned, that is those establishments which were already in existence at the time when the Water Act came into force. Those establishments are also required to apply for the consent of the State Pollution Control Board and obtain the requisite consent of the board. At the time of granting consent, State Pollution Control Board can impose any conditions which it may deem fit for achieving the purposes of the Water Act. That is, for preventing, regulating, controlling and for abatement of water pollution. At any time, if the board finds that these conditions are not complied with, board can withdraw the consent given to the institution, to that industry. And if the consent is withdrawn, it must be kept in mind the board can, any industry which is not complying with the provisions of the Water Act can be ordered to be closed down temporarily or permanently till it complies with the provisions of the Water Act. Not only that, Water Act prohibits any industry, any treatment or disposal facility from discharging effluents, sewage or trade effluents into a stream or well. The Act also bars any other person from knowingly putting into a stream or permitting any other person to put or allow entry of any matter which is obnoxious, which is poisonous, which is likely to contaminate the stream or well, or which is likely to even impede the proper flow of the water, or which is likely to aggravate water pollution. Anybody who is violating this provision is punishable under the Act. Though the Act has banned that no person, no industry, no disposal system, no treatment facility can discharge effluents or sewage or trade effluents into the water bodies without the consent of the Act, without the consent of the Pollution Control Board. But there is no bar on the construction of dams or construction of bridges or buildings or docks or trains or other sewage which the person has right to construct. At any point of time, the State Pollution Control Board can call for the information from any person who is abstracting water. If the person is abstracting water from a stream or well in substantial quantities as to the quantity of water abstracted by him, it can call for the information regarding the construction or establishment of any industry, any disposal system, the plant which they have established, and it can also call for information pertaining to the quality, the nature of the effluents being discharged into any stream or well. To ensure that the provisions of the Water Act are complied with, powers have been vested with the State Pollution Control Board that it can itself enter upon any premises, inspect those premises, it can confiscate any matter which is relevant as evidence to show that the establishment or the person is violating the provisions of the Act. Those powers are conferred on the board. Board can perform those functions, can enter upon those premises itself, or board may authorize any person to enter upon the premises, to inspect the premises, and if any material which is incriminatory in nature, which may serve as evidence later on, or which proves that the provisions of Water Act has not been complied with, those materials can be confiscated. Board has the power, as we discussed earlier, to establish board laboratories. The purpose of establishing these laboratories is to analyze the samples of water and to analyze the samples of trade and sewage effluents. If at any time board finds that the pollution level in any stream or any well has exceeded the norms prescribed by the Central Pollution Control Board in consultation with the state government, whether due to any unforeseen contingency or due to any accident, board has been vested with the power to initiate immediate emergency measures. The powers of the board include power to order closure of those industries which are polluting the environment. If we look at the legal provisions, there are adequate provisions, but despite that we find that the rivers, the streams, the wells are contaminated. And if we look at the recent decision of the NGT in 2016 in Ravit Migrani versus State, Uttarakhand High Court had to intervene and direct the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board that they have failed to discharge their basic function of keeping the river Ganga clean. And therefore they directed the Central Pollution Control Board to perform its functions, and if the State Pollution Control Board is not performing its functions, the High Court ordered the Central Pollution Control Board to supersede the State Pollution Control Board and to perform the functions of State Pollution Control Board. This apart, High Court ordered the closure of 44 industries operating in the area which were discharging pollutants and which were contaminating the water of river Ganga. This apart, 180 industries were ordered to take immediate remedial measures. The High Court also discussed that the board had the power to order the closure of industries which are not complying with the provisions of the Act, but it expressed gross dissatisfaction regarding the non-performance of the functions by the Central and the State Pollution Control Boards. This apart, the liability has been put by the Act on any person who is in charge of any premises which is discharging sewage or trade effluent into water, streams or water bodies. If there is any excessive discharges, whether due to unforeseen contingencies or due to any accident, the person in charge, who is in charge of those premises, is required to inform the State Pollution Control Board regarding the excessive discharge so that the State Pollution Control Board can immediately initiate emergency measures. There are provisions in the Act that the board can also apply for prohibitory injunction in court. That means the board can apply to the court that an industry or a person may be prohibited from discharging trade or sewage effluents or from polluting water bodies, water streams or wells falling within the state, within the jurisdiction of the State Pollution Control Board. This apart, State Pollution Control Board, as we discussed, has power not only to order closure of industries but also for the regulation of the industries which are discharging effluents into water streams or water bodies. The board also has the power that it can take the samples, collect the samples of water, it can collect the samples of the effluents, it can collect the samples of the sewage and send the same for analysis either to the board laboratory or to the central or state laboratory as the case may be. If the board intends to take sample from any establishment, any industry, then the person who has gone for collecting the sample is required to serve immediate notice on the occupier of that premises or the agent of the occupier, agent of the owner, stating his intention that he wishes to collect the sample and he wishes to get the sample analyzed. The sample is required to be taken in the presence of the occupier or agent. The sample, once it is taken, if the occupier or agent requests the person taking the sample is then it is required to be taken into two parts. If no such request is made, then the sample is to be kept in one container only. The sample is required to be marked, sealed and signed both by the person taking the sample as well as by the occupier or his agent. One such sample is required to be sent to the state laboratory. If the occupier or the agent makes a request, then the second sample is required to be sent to the state water laboratory. If no such request has been received, then as we said that the sample is required to be sent to the board laboratory. If the occupier is absent or his agent is absent, or occupier is present or his agent is present but they refuse to sign the sample, or they absent themselves at the time when the sample is being taken, then the sample is to be taken in their absence, and the container after being signed, marked and sealed is required to be sent to the state laboratory, and the government analyst has to be informed that the occupier or agent has either refused to sign the sample or he has absented himself at the time of taking the sample. Report is to be sent by the appropriate laboratory to the State Pollution Control Board in triplicate. Why 3 copies are required? One is to be kept by the board, one copy is to be supplied by the board to the occupier or agent of that establishment, and one copy is to be kept if any matter goes to the court, then one copy is needed for the purposes of the court. If the owner or occupier or agent makes a request for the division of the sample, and hence sample is sent both to the board laboratory as well as to the state water laboratory, and there is any inconsistency in the report of the board laboratory and the government laboratory, then the report of the government, state laboratory or the central laboratory, as the case may be, that shall prevail. As we said, that if when any establishment wishes to start an establishment, then it is required to obtain the prior sanction of the State Pollution Control Board. If the State Pollution Control Board refuses to grant that consent, or if the consent is granted and somebody is aggrieved why that consent is granted, then appeal can be filed before the first appellate authority. The time limit for filing the appeal is 30 days. However, if there is any delay, that delay can be condoned if the appellate body finds that there was a reasonable cause for not preferring the appeal within the period of 30 days. It is the duty of the first appellate authority that the appeal is disposed of as expeditiously as possible. This apart, the state government has also been given the power to revise the order of the State Pollution Control Board. The jurisdiction of the civil court to entertain any matter regarding which appeal can be filed before the appellate authority, that has been barred by the Water Act. That means you cannot take the matter to the civil court. The matter has to be, if you are aggrieved with the decision of the State Pollution Control Board, appeal has to be filed before the appellate authority. By the National Green Tribunal Act, National Green Tribunals have been constituted now. And since the NGTs have been constituted, if anybody is aggrieved by the decision of the first appellate authority, he can file a second appeal before the NGT. So after having seen that these are the liabilities of the occupier or of the agent or of the owner of a premises, and also seen that any person who is discharging any effluent into water bodies is required to fulfill certain responsibilities under the Act, we must see what are the offences, which acts have been declared as the offences and penalties under the Act. If we look at various offences under the Act, if any person from whom information was called for, who was abstracting substantial amount of water from water streams or wells or water bodies, to furnish information regarding the quantity of water abstracted by him from the water bodies, and he fails to furnish that information, it has been declared as offense. The offenses listed on this slide, they are punishable with imprisonment. That imprisonment can extend up to 3 months, or fine can be imposed, which can extend up to 10,000. So that means the defaults or the offenses which are listed in this slide, for them the penalties are meager, that is maximum up to 3 months, or instead of imposing the penalty, fine can be imposed, and the extent of fine can go up to 10,000. The penalties for which the offences for these penalties are levied, those offences include failure to comply with any direction of the board. As we discussed, the board can give directions to the bodies, to the establishments, to the persons who are discharging effluents into stream or well, to maybe regarding the standards, regarding the norms. If any person fails to comply with those directions, then that is also punishable under this head. If any person is constructing or establishing an industry or any disposal system and information is called for by the State Pollution Control Board and that information is not furnished, that has also been declared as an offence, punishable under this Act with imprisonment up to 3 months or fine extendable up to 10,000. Other acts which are punishable with imprisonment up to 3 months or fine extendable up to 10,000 are any person who damages the property or any work of the board, any person who obstructs the officers of the board, officer of the board who is discharging the functions of the board, or any person who is acting under the orders or directions of the board, any person who destroys, damages, defaces, pulls, injures any notice, any pillar, any post affixed or inscribed by the board or under the authority of the board, any person who fails to furnish any information desired by the board, any person who fails to intimate the board about the occurrence of any accident which has polluted the water streams, water wells, or water bodies in the state, any person who knowingly
or willingly furnishes false information. As we said, board can call for various varieties of information. If the information furnished is false, incorrect, and that has been knowingly or willingly furnished to the board, then that is also an offence under the Act, punishable with imprisonment up to 3 months or fine extendable up to 10,000 rupees. Any person who knowingly interferes with any monitoring device placed by the board or any other act for which no punishment is prescribed, all these acts are punishable with imprisonment up to 3 months or with fine which can be up to 10,000 rupees. If these offences are continuing offences, that means if the offence continues after the first conviction, then fine up to 5,000 for every day during which default continues, that can be levied. That means if a person is convicted of the offence, but even then he does not remedy the situation, he does not take corrective measures, then it will become a continuing offence, and on and from the date of first conviction, rupees 5,000 per day for every day during which this default continues, fine can be imposed upon that person. This apart, there are offences, there are acts for which severe punishment is prescribed. The following offences which are mentioned on this slide, they attract minimum punishment of 1.5 years, which can extend up to 6 years, and also fine. If you look at this the punishment prescribed for the offences listed on this screen, there is a minimum mandatory punishment. That means if the offence is proved, minimum punishment of 1.5 years, that has to be given to the person who is found to be violating the provisions of the Water Act. This apart, fine can also be imposed. This punishment can extend up to 6 years, and fine of 10,000 can also be imposed. The acts for which these punishments can be imposed are failing to comply with any order of the state board. For example, we discussed that whenever there are emergencies there, when the discharge into a stream or well exceeds the norms prescribed by the boards, and due to that the emergency situation has arisen, the board can direct any person, board can initiate emergency measures and direct any person to comply with those measures. If any person fails to violate or fails to comply with those orders, fails to comply with those directions, then he is punishable with this imprisonment. Similarly, we discussed that court can order prohibitory injunction, court can pass stay orders prohibiting a person from doing a particular act, from discharging sewage or trade effluent into a water body, and if anybody fails to comply with the prohibitory order of the court, the punishment prescribed on this slide can be inflicted upon that person. Any person who violates the directions of the central board, any person who violates the directions of the state board, any person who knowingly causes or permits any other person to discharge poisonous material, obnoxious material, polluting matter into any stream, any well, he can also be punished with this imprisonment. Any person who causes or permits any other person to put anything into a stream which impedes the flow of water, which aggravates water pollution, that he can also be punished with minimum mandatory punishment of 1.5 years, extendable up to 6 years, and with fine. And if the default continues after the first conviction, then additional fine of 5,000 rupees per day, 5,000 per day for every default that can be inflicted upon the person. And if that default, that violation continues beyond 1 year, then enhanced punishment, which shall not be less than 2 years, but which can extend up to 7 years, can be inflicted upon the person who is found to be violating the offense. The strictest punishment is for a person who establishes any industry, any operation, any process, or any treatment or disposal system without the consent of the state board, or who continues with the already existing establishment without applying for the sanction of the state board. In that case, the minimum mandatory punishment shall be of 2 years, which can extend up to 6 years, and fine can also be imposed upon that person, which shall be up to 10,000 rupees, or the court can also inflict not only the minimum mandatory punishment but also the fine. Act has also made provisions for offences by companies. If these offences are committed by companies, we all know companies have a separate legal entity, they are body corporates, they have capacity to sue, to be sued, but then there is no physical, they do not have physical presence as such. If the offence is committed by a company, it is difficult to find out who has committed the offence, because company cannot be imprisoned. Keeping in view the Water Act had made provisions for making persons responsible if the offences are committed by the company. As per the Act, if offences committed by a company or any of these offences are committed by a company, any person who was in charge of the company at the time when the offence was committed, he is liable for the offence, and therefore the imprisonment and other penalties can be, not only the company shall be deemed to have committed the offence, but the person who was in charge of the company at the time when the offence was committed shall also be deemed to have committed the offence, and therefore the punishment of imprisonment can be inflicted upon that person. But however, if that person proves that the offence has been committed despite his best efforts to avoid the commission of the offence, or that he has taken all reasonable measures to stop the commission of the offence, to prevent the commission of the offence, then he will not be punished. In case it is found that the manager, secretary or director, these persons have contributed to, they are party to, they have conspired in the commission of the offence, then these persons shall also be deemed to have committed the offence, and they can be held liable and convicted for these offences. All offences under this Act shall be tried by a metropolitan magistrate. Dear students, now we have seen the Act. We have learnt today that right to clean water has been declared by the Supreme Court of India as part of our fundamental right under Article 21, that is right to life and personal liberty, as we discussed in Narmada Bachao Andolan case. Therefore, we all have right to clean water, and therefore that is achievable, that right can be enforced only if there is a body implementation mechanism which can implement the provisions of the Water Act. We have seen the provisions of the Water Act where any industry, any establishment, before starting an establishment is required to obtain the consent. Already existing establishments are required to obtain the consent of the State Pollution Control Board. The Act has constituted Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Board to implement the purposes of the Act. Act has also established or mandated the establishment of Central Water Laboratory, State Water Laboratory or Board laboratories, or maybe the recognition of existing laboratories by the board, so that the purposes of the Act are complied with. Act has made various provisions for preventing and controlling water pollution, like laying down the norms, standards of effluents, trade effluents or sewage to be discharged in water bodies, that is streams or wells, prohibiting any person from discharging sewage or trade effluents into water bodies without the consent, without the prior permission of the board, and if any person violates the provisions of the Act, then those acts have been declared as offences for which penalties have been prescribed. Penalties for minor offences can extend up to 3 months with or without fine up to 10,000 rupees. For major offences, if we look at, the penalties prescribed are minimum mandatory punishment of 1.5 years. Dear students, so therefore we had discussed the functioning, the role, powers of State Pollution Control Board, Joint Board, Central Pollution Control Board, and various acts which have been declared as offences. We have also discussed what are the penalties prescribed for these offences.